Hello, and welcome to Cultivate to Thrive podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Gunn. I'm a self actualization and mindset coach at Cultivate and Thrive. And I am on a mission to help Christian professional moms thrive in their reclaimed value while they cultivate a fulfilling and purposeful life. Now, many times on these episodes, you will just hear me sharing some tips and some things, some knowledge to help you improve and move forward. Sometimes I'll have special guests that have something great to share, especially things that I want to share with you to help you in your journey of life. Now, you can find this podcast, whether it's live or on replay, here on my own Michelle Gunn LinkedIn page, Facebook page, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also find my business page, Cultivate and Thrive, on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and my website, michellegunn.com. That's right, my website is Michelle Gunn, 1L, 2 N's, michellegunn.com. I invite you to participate in the comment section. I invite you to reach out to me via email, DM. You can find contact information on my website. Let's chat. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Fatherhood and Beyond, navigating transitions in men's lives. As you know, for the month of June, I am celebrating men, giving back to help the men who support me and supporting them to support others. Today, I was guided towards this Bible reading, Wisdom, chapter 4, 7 through 19, on early death. And I really hesitated when I was reading it and thinking, is this relevant? And of course, I prayed to ask for something relevant. But I was wondering myself if this is at all relevant to today's topic. So let me read it to you. It's a little bit long, and let's think about how this is relative today and for this topic of transition in men's lives. But the just man, though he die early, shall be at rest. For the age that is honorable comes not with the passing of time, nor can it be measured in terms of years. Rather, understanding is the hoary crown for men, and an unsullied life, the attainment of old age. He who pleased God was loved. He who lived among sinners was transported, snatched away, lest wickedness pervert his mind, or deceit beguile his soul. For the witchery of paltry things obscures what is right, and the whirl of desire transforms the innocent mind. Having become perfect in a short while, he reached the fullness of a long career. For his soul was pleasing to the Lord, therefore he sped him out of the midst of wickedness. But the people saw and did not understand, nor did they take this into account. Yes, the just man dead condemns the sinful who live, and youth swiftly completed condemns the many years of the wicked man grown old. For they see the death of the wise man and do not understand what the Lord intended for him, or why he made him secure. They see and hold him in contempt, but the Lord laughs them to scorn. And they shall afterward become dishonored corpses, and an uneasy mockery among the dead, for he shall strike them down, speechless and prostrate, and rock them to their foundation. They shall be utterly laid waste, and shall be in grief, and their memory shall perish. So, as I'm reading it yet again out loud, keeping in mind the topic for today, transitions in men's lives, we hear through this reading, I think, several periods of transitions in the men's life that was referred to in the scripture, right? They talked about the teenage, the ending of the career, being pulled away from sinfulness. So I think it's very relevant. I would love for you to share if any of it spoke to you, whether it be in the comments or by DM or an email. I'd love to hear how the scripture talks to you and how you relay it in your life through your transitions. Now, as always, I'd love to see who is joining me. So as you come in, please, drop your name, where you're joining from, say hello, and let's connect with each other. This isn't so much as a sermon or a lecture, but a sharing of information. And I love to have dialogue through the comments and allow you to share your wisdom with me and everyone else because we all have something special to share. So let's talk about fatherhood and beyond, navigating transitions in men's lives. So really when we're looking at men, they do have unique challenges. Although they may be similar to women, they are definitely unique. All right. Welcome, Lily from Melbourne, Florida. I hope the weather's treating you well there. I'm in Texas and we're getting hit with rain from the tropical disturbance in the Gulf. I think we'll be blessed with just high winds and rains. I hope you're doing well in Florida. Thank you for joining us. So, when we're talking about men, historically and other lives and with my special talk with Chris Rangel last Friday, we talked about things that men deal with specifically and what society expects from men. So they do have a little bit of different transitions than most women. Of course, we're talking averages because every individual person is individual with their unique talents, their unique skills, and their unique challenges. Although there may be similarities, we often feel things differently than other people feel the same things. But when we're navigating challenges, it's important to do it with resilience and self awareness. And I'm not a man. So, this is my opinion, what I've experienced, what I've seen, and from talking with men. So, if any men want to join in and speak up, please do so. It's very much welcomed. But I do think men still in today's society deal with different things than women do. And I think, especially now that we have a lot of, now I might get some hate mail from this, but confusion around genders and really self awareness of who you really truly were created to be. So that makes transitions and the challenges even harder in life for every person. But when we look at men, so transitions start when they're young. And still in this day and age, when we see girls and boys, we see girls and boys and not necessarily people. We don't see just what that person or who that person is and what their likes, what their loves, and what their talents are. Now, I don't think it's a bad thing to see the gender that someone was born with, but I think there's a lot of stereotypes things. So when a boy is being brought up, and I'm sure this doesn't apply across the board. There are people who are different, do things differently, and I would love to hear about it. But generally, I think still boys are raised to be a certain way, right? They need to be tougher. They need to play with trucks and cars. They're not as encouraged to be artsy. These were typical stereotypes that I think still hold true a lot today. So, as a young boy is growing up, he is having challenges and the pressures that adolescent boys face in defining who they are. So, take for instance an artistic male. It may be seen as weak or girly. They may be mocked. So they hide those talents and they're not nurtured or brought forth to who they are. Then they start questioning their identity. Really, who am I? And am I good? Am I bad? Should I not be who I am? So it's important that adolescent males do have strong role models. And although even on Father's Day, we've seen a lot of my mom was my best dad because that person didn't have a father figure in their life. Not taking away from what mothers did, but a mother is not a father. They're not a male. They don't have the same influences, although some can be similar. But it is important to have that male role model for these adolescent boys growing up so that they are strong in their identity and who they are as a male. You can be a male and feel emotions. It's human nature. You can be a male and show emotions. Now, your parents, your siblings, your friends, society may tell you otherwise. And depending on your environmental circumstances, you may be a little cautious on how you do that. But even if you don't outwardly show it in public, you do need to connect with your emotions. You do need to build on who you innately are, right? Again, we're talking about pressures with societal expectations. So adolescents face that every day with the friends they make. Um, the games they play, whatever hobbies they choose, when they start looking at their future, right? d- It's important that they have that self esteem and resilience developed during this formative stage in their life so that they can be strong in who they are truly meant to be and who they are. Sometimes we just don't do a good job of that in society. The next stage we're moving on to after adolescence would be young adulthood, right? So we're going from a young child to teenage years to young adulthood, which can be, depending on your definition, can be pre or um, teenage years or like young 20s. Sometimes nowadays it might be even early 30s where our kids are still young adults because let's face it, our society has changed. Things are going differently at a different rate of speed. But as a young adult, these men do need to establish their identity and a purpose. They start questioning well, they probably already have been questioning, but the questions become greater, more common. Who am I? Who am I supposed to be? What do I want to do with my life? And if they're already getting to the point where they have significant others, it's that age old stereotype, right? How am I going to support my family? How am I going to make a living? And how will I be viewed in that position? Do I have the strength and the knowledge to go forward? What is society expecting of me? Should I choose this career over that career? Like engineering and science, medical, they're very much stereotypical doctor roles versus the artsy or what about a stay at home dad? That's starting, I think the stigma of that's starting to change, but there are a lot of guys that would make awesome stay at home dads. Again, if the economy and your family finances support that, because I, for one, believe that a kid needs a parental influence, especially in their young developing years. It's very important. And some men are created that way, they're strong in that way. They are strong caregivers. That does not make them any less of a man. In fact, in my eyes, it makes them stronger. I've often told my husband that the sexiest thing I can see is a dad relating to his children. That warms my heart so much to see a father connecting with his children. And I know for when I grew up, my father's role was work, work, work. And he was the rule creator, the rule enforcer. He was someone more to be feared than someone who was there to nurture and guide us in our growth in life, son or daughter. So a father plays a very, very important role. So it's important that these young adults get their identity and purpose in line. And it can take time, especially since some people don't have an ideal upbringing. So they face those circumstances, those hurdles, those challenges, right? Or they're not taught how to have strong relationships. They may think that they just need to take whatever they can get because they deserve no better. They really need to take the time to discover who they are so they can build upon that and pursue their passions. They have to first know their passions before they can pursue their passions. And of course, goal setting. What are their goals? What do they want out of life? When you start, and sometimes you don't actually look for a life partner, you just happen to find one, which I think are often those are the best relationships, right? When you're not actively pursuing a partner, but you just find that partner. To be able to really connect with someone, you have to first connect with yourself. And I'm not sure if men are really given that opportunity because society is constantly telling them who they are and who they should be, who they need to be. So we need to allow our young males to grow and develop and to help them do that and discover themselves. Because then there's fatherhood. And I've already talked a little bit about what an important role fatherhood is to a child. Many times we will repeat, copy, imitate our parents. That's what we know as a parent. And in some cases, excuse me, in some cases, we'll say, well, I'm not going to be like my mom or I'm not going to be like my dad because we didn't agree with how we were raised. Even then, many times we fall back into that because that's what we know. So we want to make sure as men transition into fatherhood that they have a good idea what a father is and they know how to be a good father. And if you didn't receive that in your upbringing, look to your friends, mentors. You hear about mentors in careers, in jobs. You can have mentors in your personal life. Find a man that you look up to, befriend him, utilize his confidence, his guidance, lean on him for support to help you be the best father you can be. Obviously, fatherhood is not a walk in the park any more than motherhood is. You have the role of caregiver, you have the role of mentor to your child. Many times you're the sole supporter or an additional supporter. There's a household to take care of. There's your own well being, and it's important that you address your own well being while being a father. Some of the unique challenges are how to raise the child. What Well, you use timeouts, corporal punishment is a good one. What about education? What about faith? What kind of faith base? How are you going to share your faith with your child? How is that going to help create them who they are? How does it help create who you are. Challenges in fatherhood often will bring you to difficult points in your parenting. Like as a young adult, many males come to a point where they come to a head with their father, where all of a sudden they are pushing the boundaries because it's time for them to go out on their own. We see that all the time in the animal kingdom, right? Where the males will start fighting over who is the boss of their, I know lions do it in their pride or their group. And oftentimes the males then will go out on their own if they don't overtake. Now, I don't think, in people, there's not really that overtaking, but there's definitely that struggle for the independence to take charge, to be the man, right? So, as well as that's a challenge in adulthood, that's also a challenge in fatherhood for the fathers to deal with that. But the rewards are so great in fatherhood. Look at the human being you are molding and creating, the lives you are changing. Because even with one life that you affect in a positive or negative way affects the rest of the world. You are making a difference by being there for your child. Don't forget in fatherhood, there's a significant other. No matter what that relationship looks like, even if it ends up broken, there's still that relationship and there's duties and challenges there with that. You have to remember that communication is important. How you communicate with others, how you communicate with your significant other, how you communicate with your children is very important. You have to find that balance of sternness, the balance of softness, of support, encouragement, of just saying no. Empathy, something a lot of men were not taught to have. Now, some people just have that innately and they ooze empathy, but there are skills you can learn that mimic empathy or help you practice empathy. That's important because it's hard to be a role model or a father without truly understanding the other person. That's not to say that you know exactly what they're going through because none of us know what the other person's going through unless we've experienced it. And even then, it's a little different. But to be able to connect on that emotional level helps you be a better father. And sometimes men still struggle with that. Again, that emotional intelligence in parenting. As your kids are young, when they start forming, they start learning, well, really when they're babies, right? They just cry if they want something. They cry if they're hurt. They cry if they're hungry. They cry if they're lonely. They cry if they're tired. And then as they develop, they're learning a little bit more of emotional intelligence of how to relay things as they develop language. They learn a little bit more how to tell you how they feel because sometimes it's hard to know how the other person is feeling unless they bring it out into words. So, as a parent, father, you need to have some emotional intelligence so you can determine what your child's needs are, why they're acting the way they're acting. I have found throughout my life that a lot of times some difficult children, they were just very badly behaved. They do that because that's how they get their attention. So you have to switch to giving them the positive attention so they don't act out because attention is attention, whether it's positive or negative, and children need that. So as a father, you need to develop your emotional intelligence to know what your child needs, what their emotions are saying to you. And then again, as a father, even if you are a stay at home dad, you have to find strategies to help balance or find harmony with work, family, and your personal well being. It does not make you whole to just go provide for your family. It will not make you whole to go to your job or career and then once you walk through the door at home, check out for your job and then fully present at home. And then there's nowhere for you to process feelings and experiences. So you really need to set up time for that. It can be a hobby, it can be communication. You do need to have friendships, mentors, people in like circumstances. Many times throughout life, you will see friends come and go. Many times their lives will mimic where you are in your life, right? When you're young, you're out partying or going to school. Most of your friends are doing the same thing. As you start settling into a couple, you will hang out with more couples, right? When you start having kids, your friends transition into people who are in the same state. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't develop and keep friends who are in other states. It just means you have to work on the connection and find those communications. And it's good to have friends in different circumstances and different transition periods in their life because then you get different viewpoints. You get different ways to look at things. And some more strategies to help you is make sure you're grounded in your faith. Spend time in prayer and meditation. Have some quiet time. Um, if you have a commute, use that commute home to decompress. Either have someone to talk to, music, podcasts, whatever feeds your soul and your mind to help you transition from the work to the home. The next transition, major transition we see in men's lives is midlife. Now, I know in the US, we use the term midlife crisis. You see that a lot, and it's often referred to, you can see it in movies and sitcoms where men and women do it too, but go through these midlife crisis where they're examining where they are in life. What did they miss out on? What what does their life mean? What is the remainder of their life going to look like? Am I fulfilled? Can I be fulfilled? How will I be fulfilled? These are all things that men deal with. Some deal with it better than others, and there are some who really don't go through the crisis. They just have a midlife change, but they deal with it much better. Let's face it, we all go through transitions. Sometimes every day is a transition. But it's how you deal with these things that make a difference in the outcome. In this day and age, we see a lot of layoffs, people losing jobs. And when you're in midlife, 50s, 60s, it looks grim to change careers, to work, to almost start over. You have relationships that change in their dynamics of how things work. You have physical health changes. And along with all of that can come the mental health changes. So, unless you're taking care of these things, it could be very detrimental to you and the rest of your life. So, how do you embrace change? Sometimes change happens to us, not necessarily for us or by us. And we have to look at that. We need to step back. As a man, think, what does this change mean to you? Does it define you? Will you allow it to define you? Better yet, how can you use this change to your advantage? I talked to one man recently who's in his 50s who just recently got laid off, and it was a surprise. And he is shocked. And of course, he's the main breadwinner. Um, and the family's in a little bit of shock that this happened and what they have to deal with. But I give kudos to him because he is taking this time to really think about what he wants next in his career, not what is he going to settle for, but where is he going to find value and utilize his value and find fulfillment and purpose going forward. So he's not jumping at the first opportunity that comes along. He's being very thoughtful, very intentional about this transition in his life. I think that's very wise. Many times we put way too much weight on that paycheck that does not bring happiness instead of the fulfillment and purpose that you're creating and doing for yourself and others. So, really finding your purpose in your midlife, if you don't have it yet, it's never too late to look for that. It's never too late to redefine who you are. And I'm not saying redefine to conform to what others expect of you, but redefine to learn, to delve, to challenge yourself to be who you are. Don't know if men are really encouraged to do that. I'd love to hear feedback on that from men. And also during this time of midlife, you still need to cultivate that resilience for the change, for these challenges that come up in your life, because there's more to come. Because you know that the only thing that is certain is that nothing is certain. Think about that. No matter how well you plan your life, there are opportunities for things to mess with that, to disrupt what your plans are. Because you cannot control everything, you can only control how you react to things. So you need to build that resilience. So when things are thrown at you, you can stop, breathe, and deal with it. And really, the final major transition in a man's life is aging. I mean, most of us don't look forward to getting old because many of us see that as the end of our life. But it's not. There's more to come. You need to really embrace your wisdom, all the wisdom you've accrued that far in your life. And you hear a lot of people talk about legacy. What legacy are you leaving? Think about it. Remember that even if you gift a large sum of money, that doesn't make as big of a difference to someone as how you treat them. They will remember how you make them feel. So think about, what legacy will you leave? You can still be building that in this transition of aging. We want to talk about aging with grace also, because many people see aging as, like I said, like the end. Okay, I'm getting too old to do anything. When you look around in the world and look at people of older ages, you can see many things. Now, of course, if there's illness or sickness, a lot of times there's not a lot you can do about that. But you can see people who choose as they get older to just sit at home and watch TV. There's not much interaction with other people. They'll, gather with family for family gatherings, but there's not much mental stimulation or much physical stimulation. Then you'll see the older people who are active, who are volunteering. Some are still even working, either consultancy or, heck, the greeters at Walmart. They're usually older, usually, not always, but usually older people, or older people who are involved in social activities and clubs, service organizations. Through my experience, the people who stay active and continue to give of themselves are the people who enjoy life to the fullest and stay healthier. What kind of person do you want to be as you age? This period of transition is also a great time to reflect on what your life has been and to think about what you want the rest of your life to be. Because again, it's never too late to change, to make a difference. Accept what has happened in the past, but don't live in it. Don't dwell there, especially if it's negative. The past is the past. That doesn't mean you can't share it and enjoy stories, but you're not living there. Make sure that you are connecting and interacting intergenerationally. Interact and connect with people of all ages. Everyone has something to offer. No matter how old you are, you can learn from any age, just like any age can learn from any other age. You must keep in mind your mental and physical well being. Like some strategies. I think the strategies are basically the same at any age. Just some of the concerns are greater as we age, like our mental alertness. The brain is the same as a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. It can be games, it can be puzzles, conversations, doing things. Physical activity oxygenates your mind to keep it working and it helps your memory. There's scientific studies on that. Even if you can't do a lot, do what you can. Work on your physical well being. Pay attention to what you eat and drink. Make good choices. Number one, you're being an example for everyone. Number two, it's your body, your mind. You deserve to be taken care of. And again, looking at that legacy, what are you leaving? I remember my grandfather, the biggest things that stuck out to me about my grandfather in his older age, he did eventually get Alzheimer's and it was not pretty, but he was always very faithful. He was a faithful religious man. Um, he was very, to me, stern in his ways, although my oldest sister, who knew him when he was younger, because we have a big age gap, she got to see a softer side of him. Um, but he also had great discipline. My grandfather loved his desserts. He always had dessert after lunch and after dinner, but he always ate proper portion sizes because he had that discipline. Those are things that stuck in my mind about him. So when you think about as a man and you are living, what things do you want people to remember about you? What do you want to be known for? When we're talking about legacy, that's what we're talking about. I don't think legacy, a lot of people have referred to legacy is like a name on a building because you donated a ton of money. Although that's needed in the world, I'm not saying it's not. But what do you want to be known for? And how are you going to transition every stage in your life? So I'm calling all men today, no matter what transition you're in or coming upon, that you act with continued self reflection, growth every day, and support one another in this journey that we call life. What does being a man mean to you? I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode of Fatherhood and Beyond, navigating transition in men's lives. If there was something of value, please like and share it out. I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Cultivate and Thrive. You'll see these live and they'll last there on the replay. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And men, keep being the great men that you are. Don't be afraid to get help if you need it. We all benefit from each other. Go out, cultivate, and thrive.